The Stolen Earth in Doctor Who Series 4 ended with the Doctor's regeneration, and while we knew Tennant was going to leave the show, we never thought it would be so soon. But what if the Doctor fully regenerated in the Stolen Earth? To set up this scenario, let's say this takes place just after the Doctor has been struck by a Dalek gun ray and Jack's destroyed said Dalek. While it doesn't fully kill him, it does however trigger regeneration, which needs to heal his body. In the original timeline, the Doctor siphons off the regeneration energy into a spare hand without changing, and that does actually still count in the regeneration cycle. But in this timeline, let's say the Doctor's regeneration is initiated quicker than regeneration in the original timeline. The Doctor regenerates, but with the Doctor not in the TARDIS, the regeneration goes all the way, and we would meet the 11th Doctor earlier than expected. So, with the Doctor now in a new incarnation, and Donna and Rose having witnessed this for the first time in ages, well, that's in Rose's case, this is actually the first time Donna's witnessed a regeneration, and this is the first time Jack as well has witnessed a regeneration. So, what happens next? Well, the next part of the video is a scenario I came up with to extend on two of my other What If videos on if the Doctor never abandoned Jack and if the Doctor never lost his hand. These scenarios can also be applied to this, sort of. The Doctor would hide the TARDIS and cloak it in a nearby alleyway where the Daleks would be unable to locate it. So instead, the Doctor devises a way to defeat the Daleks. The Doctor constructs the same device that the Metacrisis Doctor did in the original timeline, but this time it's more compact and can be easily hidden. Perhaps it could be in the form of, say, a small rifle or something. The Doctor tells Rose and Jack to teleport to the Crucible where they would keep the Daleks waiting. Then the other companions would be rounded up later on. Davros then, later on in the episode, would send a signal to the TARDIS using the subwave network, telling the Doctor either he comes to the Crucible or he kills the companions and detonates the reality bomb. So the Warp Star and the Osterhagen key would then be rendered useless, with Davros transmitting the Doctor's other companions onto the ship, and with Davros about to detonate the reality bomb, the TARDIS then materializes in the Crucible, where the Doctor fires the device on Davros. This in turn destroys the Daleks along with Davros himself. However, I doubt it would destroy Dalek Khan because he wasn't created from Davros' DNA, so Dalek Khan wouldn't initially die, but when the Crucible is blown up, then he would obviously still die. So, the Doctor and his companions get in the TARDIS, and from here the episode would carry on as normal, with a few differences. Firstly, Mickey and Rose would go back to the main Earth with Jack's vortex manipulator remaining in working order, because the 10th Doctor told Jack, "I told you, no teleport." But this new Doctor could find a newfound trust in Jack and actually trust him to keep his vortex manipulator. Now, I'm unsure if this would change any events in Children of Earth, I doubt it, but it could even allow Jack to potentially escape. Like, he could even escape the hub before. Full disclosure, I'm not sure how it would affect the events of Children of Earth. That is probably a video for another day. Also, the Doctor would have no reason to erase Donna's memory because, for one thing, there was no Metacrisis, meaning initially it would mean the reality bomb and the end of the universe, but because the Doctor's now destroyed Davros with that device that Metacrisis constructed in the original timeline, the Doctor now has no reason to erase Donna's memory, meaning she would most likely carry over into the specials. Now, I did try and find a scenario in which Rose would actually continue to travel with the Doctor after this, but I couldn't really find a scenario in which this would work. When it comes to the specials, things would really change quite a lot. In the next Doctor, the 11th Doctor and Donna would still assist Jackson Lake in destroying the Cybermen, with Donna helping out as well. Now, I do believe that the Doctor in the original timeline destroyed the Cybermen because there was no companion to provide an alternative, but with Donna now present, the Doctor would simply rescue her, which frees her from the Cybermen's control. Then the Doctor would use the Dimension Vault to send the Cyber King into the Time Vortex. So that's basically what I would see changing there. In Planet of the Dead, this new Doctor would still try and help the creatures, but would still manage to get everyone home in that bus. This is where we could witness the 11th Doctor meeting Unit quite early on in the timeline, where we could see the 11th Doctor meeting Captain Magumbo and Malcolm, meaning they could make a potential appearance down the line. In the waters of Mars, Donna would convince the Doctor to save the crew of Bowie Base 1, despite the Doctor's initial protest of this being a fixed point in time. The survivors of the base explosion are Adelaide, Yuri and Mia. I do still think that Adelaide would commit suicide to keep history intact. When it comes to the end of time, I think nothing would actually change, however there would be a few exceptions. Firstly, Donna will actually be turned into one of the Master's duplicates. Again, this stems back to the Doctor not having to erase Donna's memory because there was no meta crisis. So Donna would be a big part of the adventure, but in the End of Time Part 1, she gets turned into one of the Master's duplicates, leaving the 11th Doctor, Wilf and the cacti people. Or as Wilf said, God bless the cactuses, although they found that apparently racist. The rest of the episode goes on as normal up until the Doctor's speech. The Doctor is trying to figure out how to rescue Wilf without killing him, but then Donna runs in, now changed back from the Master because Rassilon reversed what the Master did. Donna runs into the radiation chamber and sacrifices herself to save Wilfred. This would be a heart-wrenching and gut-punching moment because Donna was a popular companion and it would be really heartbreaking to see her die. Following this, the Doctor, after rescuing Wilf and bringing him home to Sylvia and telling her of Donna's sacrifice, decides to tie up some loose ends. Now, quick side note here, I saw a video called What If the Doctor Never Saved Wilf, and in this scenario, the Doctor will make a vow never to travel with anyone again, but that would mean he doesn't make any stops, which would mean the death of Luke Smith, the death of Martha Jones, and, well, Jack would never meet Alonzo, although that's not necessarily too important. So, the Doctor visits all of his companions in the same order in the original timeline, but this time his visits with the companions are extended. He visits Martha and Mickey and assists them in fighting a Sontaran. The Doctor brings them home and catches up with them. Next, he goes to Bannerman Road, rescuing Luke Smith from a speeding car. Following this, he stops in with Sarah Jane, having a cuppa before heading off. So, I do think the Doctor would still notify all of his companions of Donna's sacrifice, which again would be really heartbreaking still. Next up, the Doctor heads off to a space bar where he has a drink with Captain Jack. Jack then would tell the Doctor of the events of Torchwood Children of Earth and why he's not back at Torchwood, because the government tried to destroy Torchwood and kill Jack. Side note, the spin-offs wouldn't be affected by any of these events, and that includes Torchwood Children of Earth and especially Miracle Day. The less said about that part of Torchwood, the better. Lastly, the Doctor now heads to the newly rebuilt Torchwood London, now run by Rose, because Rose didn't travel with the Doctor because, well, he's a new man. Rose only assisted in helping defeat the Doctor because, well, the Daleks threatened all of reality, but Rose still trusted the Doctor, and following this, the Doctor visits Rose and catches up with her. The Doctor then leaves Earth, knowing he may not return for a while. Following this, the Doctor pilots the TARDIS as normal, but suddenly is hit by something in the vortex. This would most likely be some kind of debris or something that could potentially set up a story element in Series 5. The TARDIS then gets sent hurtling through London and eventually into young Amelia Pond's garden. So, another quick side note here. I think for most of the specials, the 11th Doctor would don one of the original concept outfits that Stephen Moffat was drafting, and then when the TARDIS crashes into Amelia Pond's garden and then returns in the future, etc., all the 11th Hour stuff, the Doctor would then change into the iconic thing with the cool bow tie and the braces, I think they're called, and the tweed jacket. The rest of Series 5, along with Series 6, Series 7, and Day of the Doctor would most likely just go on as normal. So, with that being the end to this scenario, I want to address a very interesting point. I know a lot of people are going to ask why this new Doctor used the device on Davros, knowing it would destroy the Daleks. Well, I can easily back this up. In Journey's End, the Doctor said that the Meta-Crisis was born in battle for the blood, anger and revenge, which is why he left the Meta-Crisis with Rose. This is why the 11th Doctor destroyed the Daleks. He was born in battle himself and filled with blood, anger and revenge. This can also be applied to the War Doctor as well, since his incarnation was born during the Time War. So I'm going to end the video here because this scenario has very much reached its conclusion. I doubt any of this would change the events of Series 11 and 12 and the Timeless Child. I know, I'm sorry. I just couldn't really see it changing anything. So, what do you guys think of this scenario? Do you think a Journey's End with the 11th Doctor would have been interesting to see on screen? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see our Doctor Who playlist, I will provide a link in the description most likely, or in the little info sidebar of the video. Anyway, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed this video.